Hello, in this lecture we're going to continue on with our master budget, and we are now moving to the raw materials budget. So remember that last time we got to do this in order. Last time we did the sales budget, then we did the production budget, and now we're able to do the raw materials budget. And why does it have to be in that order? Because in order to do anything, we got to know how much we're going to sell, basically, and then we can think about how much we are going to need to produce in order to meet our sales needs. And that's where we are at. We have these production numbers in units. We're talking about units in this case. And if we're talking about, widgets, or if we had guitars or something, this is how many guitars we would make. Now we need to know how much material we're going to need in order to make that guitar. So how much we're going to have to purchase in terms of raw materials. In order to do that, remember that in these types of problems, many times what we're going to have to think about is how many units of material does it take to produce 1 unit of product. So, and that's what we're going to take a look at within the raw materials production budget, which must be done after we do the production budget. So we're going to start off with the production budget in units, the numbers that we just calculated up here. Remember that we are working in the third quarter, being July, August, and September. And we're just going to pull these numbers down. So I'm going to say this equals what we came up with in the production budget. This is how many units that we believe we need to produce in July. In August, we believe it's going to be 20. And yes, you can copy and paste this over and it would work. And 20,005 for September. Next, we're going to need the material requirements per unit. So basically, these are the units we're going to make, and we're going to say, well, how much raw material, how many things do we need in order to make that? So if it's a guitar, we'd be talking about how much wood would we need in order to make that. We're going to have to get that from the problem. Obviously, in real life, we would have some kind of estimate of how much material it takes to make each of these things, and we're going to take that from the problem. So the problem's going to have to give us somewhere that how much material it will take. And in this case, we have right here, raw material units per finished, it's 0.5. So 0.5 units. So we're going to be up here, we're going to say it's 0.5, enter, and that's how many units that we will have. Then if we multiply that out, then for the 19,586, we're going to say it's only going to take the 0.5 units, and therefore we would need 9,793 units. We're going to do that for August. Whoop. Well, first I got to put the 0.5 all the way across. 0.5 for August and 0.5 for September. So for August, we're going to say this is how many units we need to produce times 0.5, which is the amount of the material per unit. And that will give us August. September will be the 20,005 times, once again, the 0.5. So that gives us the materials needed for production. However, just like we had up here when we did the production budget in total units, we also down here might want to have some inventory left over at the end of the month. So in this case, at the end of July, we might want to have some left over, and therefore we would want to budget for that. We want to say, okay, I want to have some kind of cushion. If we make 9,793 units, we also want to have some left over. Let's plan for that. We're going to need some type of plan for that. A problem's going to have to give us some type of plan for that. So in this problem, we have ending raw materials percent of next month's material. So we're saying 50% of next month's materials needed. So what that is trying to say here is we're saying next month we're going to need 10,000 units of materials needed for production. We want to have a general rule that we want to plan for ending inventory of 50% of next month's. That's going to be kind of our cushion rule that we will have. So for July, we're going to say this equals 10,000. That's what we're going to need next month times 0.5. Enter. We want 5,000 basically left in the warehouse as of the end of July. In August, we're going to say, well, that equals the 10,250 units that we need in production in September times 0.5. That's kind of the cushion that we're going to want in August. And then we get to September, and of course the question is, well, we only have the 3 months here. We're only working on this quarter. How am I going to get this number? And the problem's going to have to give us that in some way. They can either give us what the materials needed for production is, so we can take 50% of it, or they can just give us the number. This problem just gives us the number here. So we see that raw materials in units, they gave us this number for September in this case. So we're just going to plug in the 4,000. So then we can add those two up. I'm just going to add up the 9793, that's the materials needed, plus how much we want in the inventory. We're going to do the same thing for August. We're going to say we're going to produce the 10,000, the amount needed, plus the budgeted ending inventory. And of course, you could copy and paste this. I'm just going to calculate it 3 times so we can see it. September, we want the 10,002. That's how much is needed, plus how much we want in the cushion for ending inventory. So that would give us the total material requirements. That's what we're going to need. For example, for July, we're going to need 14,793 in materials in order to make the production. You might think, well, that should be it. But it would be it if we were starting from scratch there. However, this is not our first month of operations. Therefore, we probably have some materials left over from last month. So in terms of, now we're going to have to think about, well, what was in there last month and pull that out. So if this is what we need to have, then what do we already have? We're going to subtract that out. Now for this one, let's first think about August. August we can think about because we're going to say, well, we're going to subtract out the beginning inventory for August must be the ending inventory for July. So we just said that we wanted to end up with 5,000 in ending inventory. That's our plan. Therefore, the beginning inventory for August will equal that 5,000. And of course, the same is true for September, the last month in our quarter. We're going to say, well, if August is going to end with 5,125, then September is going to begin with the 5,125. And then, of course, we have this same issue where, well, what about July? Because we're only working on this quarter. So once again, the problem's going to have to give us that in some format. In this case, they give us the number right here. So we're going to say in July, it's going to be 4,925. So we can subtract that out now. So now we're going to say, well, this is how many units that are required in units, not dollars. And we're going to say minus what we already have. That means that we're going to create or produce materials to be purchased. We're going to buy these things. Is going to be 9,863. We're going to have to buy the materials, obviously. And this is going to be the 15. That's how many that are going to be needed. This is how many 5,000 that we plan to have on hand at the beginning. Therefore, we're going to have to purchase another 10,125. And in September, this is how many are needed, minus the amount that we plan to have on hand. That means we're going to have to purchase 9,125. So now we could add these across. I'm going to come over here to the total and add those total units up by saying SUM of the units that we need to purchase of the 9,868, the 10,125, the 9,125. That will give us the 29,118. And so that's how many units we're going to have. We are, of course, going to have to pay dollars for these. So in this case, we're going to have to find out, well, how much is it going to cost per unit? And again, this could vary a lot depending on the types of units, of course, that we're looking at here. In this case, if we scroll down, we're gonna need to find that, of course, in the problem somewhere. And in this case, we're going to say that the cost per unit is $21 per unit. So this in terms of dollars. That's how many units we're going to have. We're going to spend $21 per unit, and we're going to put that all the way across. Therefore, we're going to multiply that out, of course. We have the number of units that we're going to have times the dollars per unit tab. So we're going to spend in dollars, and we could put the dollar signs down here as well. So I could make this a dollar sign type of cell like this and format it like so. I'm going to get rid of the decimals. And then I'm going to format paint that all the way across. So these are dollars now that we're talking about. And again, you could copy and paste this across. I'm just going to do the calculations so we can see them. So we're going to take the materials that are going to be needed times the number of dollars for those materials per unit. And that's the amount of dollars we're going to spend. And then, of course, we're going to do the same thing for September. Units needed times the dollars cost per unit. And then if we want to do the total, we could add them up this way, which would give us the 611,474. And we also should be able to add it up this way, or multiply it out this way, the total units. And that should also give us the 611,474. And that will, of course, be the total cost of direct material purchases. So remember how you want to think about this. Basically, you want to think about how many units we're going to need to produce. Then you want to think about how much we want to have in ending inventory for a cushion. That'll give us the units that we're going to need to have on hand. Then we want to subtract out from that the amount of materials already on hand. And that'll give us how many we need to buy. And then we just multiply that unit times the unit price to give us how much it's actually going to cost for these units. Hello, in this lecture we're going to work on a master budget, and we're going to start off with the sales budget over here. We're going to have our information on the left-hand side, and then we're going to enter that information into the blue area over here. The master budget can be a bit intimidating because of, one, the amount of information that is given in a problem like this, and two, because of the amount of information we have to input can be very large. However, if we do it basically in chunks, step by step, and there is a step-by-step process in order that we have to do it in, basically starting, of course, with the sales budget. Also want to point out that we are going to do a master budget, and we're thinking about manufacturing companies. And the reason for a manufacturing company type budget is often because it's the largest type of budget we're going to have to think about, because we're going to have to think about purchasing and inventory. So obviously, if you were working on something, if we had a budget for something that was not a manufacturing company, then we would still have a budget, but we would take out, of course, a lot of the manufacturing stuff, probably a more simplified type of budget. Okay, so the first thing, what we'll have in our information is we want to know where we're at a point in time, where the budget is going to be for. So we're going to be budgeting for, in this case, July, August, and September. So that'll be the third quarter. And the information we're generally going to need to budget looking forward is we're going to need what happened basically in the past, and we're going to need some general rules in terms of how we're going to budget. So first we have what happened in the past. So that's going to, of course, be the balance sheet as of 6/30. So that's going to be our beginning numbers that we're going to start off with, and then we're going to use those, of course, to budget to the future. So the balance sheet's going to be over here, and then a problem like this will generally have a lot of other miscellaneous information, including things like what we think our sales are going to be, and our policies in terms of basically our collections and things like that. So we'll go through these things as we work through the problem as needed, talk about where they're generally going to be in a problem, as well as where we might get them in real life. So a budget's going to have to start off with basically sales, and that's because everything else is going to be generated from that. We can't budget anything else until we know how much we're gonna receive in sales. So that has to be where we start, and much of the sales budget's just going to be given to you within a problem. So down here in this problem, we have our July, August, and September. So we're taking July, August, and September, and note a lot of times these problems will have basically a June and October type numbers in there, because we're going to need those to make some of our estimates. So remember that we are working on the third quarter, July, August, and September, and we're going to give data for before that time, possibly after that time, in order to help us with parts of the budget as we go. And so they're giving us basically the sales in units here. So remember, we sell things, we sell inventory. If you want to make up some type of widget that we're selling, that's fine. We're making something and selling it. These are the number of units that we're going to sell, and we're going to sell them at $24. So that's going to be given in the problem. In real life, of course, we'd have to project that in some way, and that would be part of the process of the budget. But any kind of problem on it, generally going to be given within the problem. So 20,006, 19,6, and 20,001. So let's go up here. I'm just going to plug those numbers in here. 20,006, 19,6, and 20,001. Notice I'm not putting a comma in there or anything. Of course, I'm formatted. The cells are being formatted already in terms of number format. Going to sum that up by saying equals SUM, and I'm just going to sum that up. The 26 plus the 19,6 plus the 20,001 is going to add up to a total of 60,003 for the third quarter. Now that's units, and we're going to talk about now the dollar amount, which will be 24. That's how much we sell these for. Therefore, we're going to multiply this out now. So 20,006 units in July times $24 would be equals 20,006 times 24, and enter. The way I said that, you probably thought I was going to do that in my head there, but no, we're going to do that here. We're going to say this equals the 19,6 units that we're going to sell times the $24 that we sell them for. And that'll give us the 470,400. And then in September, we're going to say this equals the 20,001 times the $24 that we sell them for. And so this is how many units we're going to sell. And now we're going to sum up the dollars sales that we believe that we're going to have. So this is going to equal the sum of. And notice, sometimes I'll try to format that. We could format these in terms of dollars over here as well, just so we can see the fact that when we're separating units from dollars, which can be a bit confusing in these types of problems. All right, step 2 is to make the production budget. And you might be thinking, well, the production, how many units are we going to produce? That's what the production budget is going to tell us. And you might be thinking, well, we already figured that